The dirt was cold. Not the kind of cold you feel on a winter morning when you step outside and your breath turns to smoke. This was different. This was the cold of something final. The cold of a place that wasn't meant for the living. I could feel it pressing against my chest, against my face, against every inch of me. Heavy. Absolute. And somewhere above me, I could hear the last shovelfuls of earth hitting the wood. My name is Claire Hargrove. I'm a rancher. I've pulled calves in the middle of blizzards, stitched my own wounds after a fence wire tore through my arm, and buried 3 generations of family in the same plot of land my great-grandmother homesteaded in 1923. But on the night of October 14th, someone tried to bury me in that same soil. I was 41 years old. I had $11 in my wallet, a broken thumbnail, and dirt filling my lungs. And I was not ready to die. This is the story of what happened on the Hargrove Ranch, what led up to that night, who put me in that box, and how I clawed my way back to the surface. If you think you know where this is going, you don't. Before I tell you what happened that night, I need you to understand something about ranchers. We don't scare easy. I've had a bull charge me at full speed and stood my ground. I've walked through a grass fire with nothing but a wet blanket and a prayer. I've sat alone in a truck on a dirt road at 2 a.m., waiting for a vet who was 3 hours away, watching an animal I loved more than most people fight to stay alive. Fear is something we learn to manage. We fold it up small, tuck it somewhere behind the ribs, and keep moving. So when I tell you that on the night of October 14th, I was more terrified than I have ever been in my entire life, I need you to feel the weight of that. It was a Tuesday. Thing about that day announced itself as different. I had fed the horses at 5:30 a.m., same as always, replaced a section of fence line on the north pasture, ate lunch standing over the kitchen sink, cold coffee, and a piece of cornbread left over from Sunday. By 7 p.m., I was walking the perimeter of the east field the way I do every evening before dark, checking gates, checking water lines, checking that the land was still mine and still standing. That walk takes me exactly 22 minutes. I never made it back. Somewhere between the old water tower and the equipment shed, in a stretch of land I have walked 10,000 times, something hit me from behind. Hard. The kind of blow that doesn't just take your legs, it takes your sense of time. 1 second I was watching the last strip of orange disappear below the tree line. The next I was on the ground, face in the dirt, and I couldn't tell if seconds had passed or hours. I remember thinking, the horses haven't been locked in yet. Funny, the things your mind holds onto. If you're watching this for the first time, welcome. My name is Claire Hargrove, and this is my ranch, my story, and my truth. Hit that subscribe button and stay close, because this is only the beginning. And trust me, you are not ready for what comes next. The first thing I noticed was the smell. Not dirt, not wood. Something older than both. The specific, suffocating smell of a place where air has stopped moving, where nothing breathes, where the world above has been sealed away like a memory you're not supposed to keep. I didn't know where I was. My brain was doing that thing it does after a hard blow, assembling reality in the wrong order, handing you pieces that don't fit yet. I knew my name, I knew I was lying down, I knew something was wrong in a way that went beyond words, beyond thought, beyond anything I could name with language. Then I moved my hand. My knuckles hit wood, 6 inches above my face, and everything assembled at once. I was in a box. I want to be honest with you about what happened in the next 30 seconds, because I think people imagine that survivors are somehow different from regular humans, that we have some switch that flips in a crisis and turns off the fear and turns on the machine. That is not what happened. I screamed. I screamed until my throat felt like gravel. I slammed my palms against the lid so hard I felt something shift in my left wrist. I kicked, I twisted, I clawed at the wood above me with my fingernails until 2 of them bent back and I didn't even feel it. And nothing moved. The wood held. The dark held. The weight above me held. I don't know how long that lasted. Long enough that my lungs started burning. Long enough that I understood, on a cellular level, that the air in this box was not unlimited. That every scream I released was air I would not get back. That's what stopped me. Not courage, not training, not some deep well of rancher toughness. The math stopped me. I pressed my back flat against the bottom of the box, made myself still, focused on the smallest breath I could take, just enough to keep the edges of my vision from going white. And I started to think. The box was wood, old wood from the feel of it. Not fresh-cut lumber, not something built for this. The grain was rough under my fingers. There were gaps, thin ones, where the boards didn't sit flush. That meant it wasn't airtight. That meant I had more time than I'd thought. I ran through everything I knew about the East Field, the water tower, the equipment shed, the old root cellar my grandfather had dug in 1961 that we hadn't used in 30 years. The root cellar. It was less than 40 feet from where I'd been walking. I pressed my palm flat against the lid and pushed, slow, steady, deliberate, and felt the resistance of packed earth above me. At least a foot of it, maybe more. My left wrist throbbed. My throat tasted like copper. The air was thinning in ways I could feel but not yet measure. I had one option. I had to dig. But before I tell you what happened next, I need you to understand something. Because it's the part that still keeps me up at night 3 years later, lying in the same house, on the same land. Someone knew about that root cellar. Someone knew it was there, knew it hadn't been used in decades, knew that if they put me inside it and covered the door with enough dirt, nobody would think to look there for days. This wasn't random. This was planned. And whoever planned it, they knew my ranch better than most people know their own living room. Stay with me, because in the next chapter, I'm going to tell you about the 3 people who had that kind of knowledge. And one of them had been smiling at me across my own dinner table just 4 days before. I had my fingers pressed into the first gap between the boards when I heard it. A footstep. Single, deliberate, close. I froze. Not because I decided to. My body made that decision before my brain caught up. Every muscle locked. Every breath stopped. Some ancient part of me, older than language, older than thought, understood instinctively that moving was dangerous. I pressed my ear against the wood above my head and listened. Another step. Then another. The unmistakable sound of boots on dry earth. Slow, unhurried. The walk of someone who isn't searching. Someone who already knows exactly where they're going. They were coming toward me. I want you to think about what that moment feels like. You are in a box, underground, in the dark. You cannot see, cannot stand, cannot run. You have exactly 2 choices and approximately 4 seconds to make them. Scream. And whoever is up there knows you're alive. Stay silent. And whoever is up there may walk away thinking the job is done. Neither option is safe. Because here's the thing nobody tells you about life or death decisions. They're not made with your brain. They're made with something faster and messier and harder to explain. Some raw calculation that happens below thought, below reason, below everything you believe about who you are. I stayed silent. I don't know if that was courage or cowardice. I still don't. What I know is that something in me understood, without evidence, without logic, that the person walking above me was not there to help. The footsteps stopped, directly above me. I could hear breathing now. Slow, controlled. Someone standing still, listening to the night the same way I was listening to them. Two people separated by 12 inches of wood and dirt, and something enormous and unspeakable. Then a voice, low, almost casual, the voice of someone talking to themselves, or to something they don't expect to answer back. Should have sold when you had the chance, Claire. The world went very small. I knew that voice. I had known that voice for 11 years. I had heard it across fence lines and at feed store counters and at my own kitchen table. I had trusted that voice the way you trust the ground under your feet, automatically, without question, because some things just feel permanent. My hand was shaking so badly I had to press it flat against my sternum to make it stop. Above me, the footsteps resumed, slower now, circling, like something making sure of its work. I counted them. 7 steps in one direction. A pause. 5 steps back. Another pause, longer this time. I held my breath until my vision pulsed. Then the footsteps moved away, getting quieter, getting distant, until the only sound left was the wind moving through the grass somewhere above me and my own heartbeat, which was so loud in that box I was half convinced it could be heard from the surface. I gave it 10 minutes. I counted every second. Then I started to dig. My left wrist was swollen now, stiff in a way that told me something wasn't right inside it. I used my right hand as the lead, jamming my fingers into the gap at the top corner of the box where the wood felt softest, where the earth above hadn't compacted as fully. Dirt fell into my face, into my mouth. I turned my head sideways and kept going. Here's what nobody understands about survival until they're in it. It's not dramatic, it's not a movie moment. It's filthy, and it's slow, and it's stupid, and it hurts. And the whole time your brain is running 2 tracks simultaneously. Track 1, dig. Track 2, that voice. 11 years. By the time my fingers broke through the surface and felt cold night air for the first time, I was already building the picture. Every conversation, every favor, every time that person had walked this land like they owned it. And suddenly I understood why. I dragged myself out of that hole with 1 working hand and 2 cracked fingernails and dirt packed into every part of me. I lay on the surface of my own ranch and looked up at a sky full of stars and breathed. And then I did something that surprises people when I tell this part. I didn't run to the house. I didn't call 911. I didn't make a sound. I lay there for exactly 3 minutes. I watched the stars and I made a decision that would either save my life or end it faster than the box ever could. Before I tell you what that decision was, I want to hear from you. Where are you watching this from right now? Drop your city or your country in the comments. I've had people tell me they watched this at 2 a.m., unable to sleep, people watching from farms and ranches of their own. People who've never seen a dirt road in their life. Every single one of you matters to this story. Because in chapter 3, Claire doesn't run. Claire goes back. The ranch house was 140 yards from the root cellar. I know that because I've walked it 10,000 times in daylight, in rain, in mud, in snow. I know every dip in that ground, every patch where the grass grows thin over hardpan, every spot where the irrigation pipe runs shallow enough to catch a boot toe if you're not paying attention. That night, I was grateful for every single step I'd ever taken on that land. I moved low and slow, the way you move when you don't know where the threat is, but you know it's close. My left wrist was pressed against my stomach. My right hand was out, fingers spread, reading the dark, the way blind people read walls. The sky was clear, but the moon was thin, just enough light to make shadows, not enough to see what was in them. The house was dark. Every window, every room. That shouldn't have bothered me. I'd been outside, it made sense the lights were off, but something about the specific quality of that darkness felt wrong. Not empty, waiting. I stopped at the edge of the yard and watched for 2 full minutes. Nothing moved. I went in through the mudroom door on the east side, the one with the broken latch that I'd been meaning to fix for 3 years and never did. I eased it open with my shoulder, 1 inch at a time, until I could slip through sideways. The kitchen smelled like my kitchen, coffee and cedar and the faint ghost of the cornbread from Sunday. I stood in the dark and let my eyes adjust and listened. The house breathed the way old houses breathe, settling, ticking, the furnace clicking on in the basement. Familiar sounds, the sounds of a place that knows you. I moved to the kitchen drawer where I keep the flashlight, the heavy mag light, the one my father gave me the year he got too sick to work the land himself. My fingers closed around it, and I held it like a club, not a light source. I wasn't ready to announce myself yet. The living room was undisturbed. The hallway was undisturbed. Then I reached the office. The door was open 3 inches wider than I leave it. I always leave it open exactly the width of my hand. An old habit, something about the room needing to breathe, something my mother used to say. I couldn't have told you the precise measurement, but I could feel the wrongness of it the same way you can feel when a picture on a wall is crooked without measuring it. Someone had been in that room. I pushed the door open with my foot and stood in the frame. The filing cabinet was closed. The desk looked untouched, but the laptop, my laptop, which I leave open every night because I never fully close it, was shut. I cross the room. I open it. The screen lights up and I have to shield my eyes, and in those 2 blinded seconds, I feel more vulnerable than I did in the box. When my vision clears, I see it. The browser is open to a page I didn't open, a real estate listing. My ranch. Hargrove land and property, 847 acres. Existing structures, mineral rights included. Listed for sale. My name is on the listing. My signature is on the documents in the preview. I have never signed those documents in my life. I stood in my own office, covered in dirt, one hand broken, and looked at the price they'd put on everything my family had built across 4 generations. I want to tell you I felt rage, and I did, but underneath the rage was something colder and more clarifying. The specific feeling of understanding arriving all at once, like a key turning in a lock you didn't know was there. This was never about hurting me. This was about the land. I was supposed to be dead and undiscovered long enough for someone to move those documents, long enough for a sale to process, long enough that by the time anyone found what was left of me, the Hargrove Ranch would already belong to someone else. I reached for my phone. Dead. Battery pulled. I could see the back panel had been popped and reseated slightly crooked. The landline in the kitchen. I moved fast now. Done with quiet, done with careful, because careful had gotten me buried, and I was finished playing defense on my own property. I picked up the receiver. Silence. Not the silence of a disconnected line. The silence of a line that has been cut cleanly, deliberately, by someone who knew exactly where the junction box was on the outside of the house. I stood in my kitchen with a dead phone in my hand, and dirt still packed under my fingernails. And I thought about the 11 years I'd known that voice. And I thought about what I had that they didn't. I knew this land. Every acre. Every building. Every tool in every shed. They had a head start and a plan. I had something better. I was still alive and they didn't know it yet. Now, before I tell you what I did next, I need to ask you something directly. Have you ever had someone betray your trust so completely it rewrote your memory of them? Where you go back through every conversation, every moment, and see it differently. Drop it in the comments. You don't have to share details. Just tell me, yes or no. Because in chapter 4, Claire stops surviving. Claire starts fighting back. I almost missed it. I was moving toward the window to check the yard when the beam of the mag light caught the edge of something behind the filing cabinet. A corner of manila folder, thick with papers, wedged into the gap between the cabinet and the wall. I don't own a manila folder. I mean that literally. I keep everything digital. The one thing my father and I ever argued about was his obsession with paper records. And the day I took over the ranch, I switched everything to the laptop and never looked back. That folder did not belong to me. Someone had put it there. I pulled it out with 2 fingers. The way you handle something you're not sure is safe, and laid it flat on the desk. The first page was a geological survey. Hargrove Ranch, dated 14 months ago, commissioned by something called Vantara Resource Group LLC. I had never heard that name in my life. I turned the page. Subsurface mineral analysis. Technical language I had to work through slowly, my dirt-caked finger moving under each line. But the conclusion was plain enough that even someone who hadn't slept, hadn't eaten, and had spent the last several hours buried alive could understand it. Beneath the east pasture, the same east pasture I walked every evening, the same ground where someone had put me in a box, there was a deposit. Lithium. Not a trace amount. Not a maybe. A confirmed, mapped, commercially viable deposit of lithium carbonate that the survey estimated at somewhere between $800 million and $1.2 billion in recoverable value. I sat down in my father's chair. I don't remember deciding to sit. My legs made that decision. I turned to the next page and found a letter. Corporate letterhead, Vantara Resource Group, addressed not to me, but to a name I recognized immediately. Dale Pritchard, my neighbor of 11 years. The man whose voice I had heard above me in the dark. The man who had eaten at my kitchen table 4 days ago and asked me, casually, over coffee, the way you ask about the weather, whether I'd ever thought about selling. I had laughed. I remembered laughing. The letter outlined an agreement. Vantara would provide legal support and capital. Dale would secure the property transfer by any means necessary. Those were the exact words, any means necessary, and receive 15% of net extraction value upon successful title transfer. 15% of $1.2 billion. I did the math without wanting to. I turned another page and stopped breathing. A second name, not a neighbor, not a stranger. Roy Calvert, county assessor. The man who had processed my property taxes for 9 years. The man who had sent a card when my father died. The man who had access to every legal document connected to this land. Deed records, title history, survey filings, everything a person would need to manufacture a convincing property transfer. 2 men, 1 geological survey worth more than I could spend in 10 lifetimes, and a ranch that had been in my family for 100 years, sitting on top of all of it without anyone knowing. Without anyone knowing except them. I thought about the listing on my laptop, my forged signature, the timeline they must have built. How long between my disappearance and when someone would come looking? A week? 2? Long enough for Dale to present documents to Roy. Long enough for Roy to process a transfer under emergency estate provisions. Long enough for Vantara Resource Group to break ground before any court could untangle what had happened. It was elegant in the way that truly terrible things sometimes are. I closed the folder. My hands were steady. That surprised me. After everything, the box, the voice, the dead phone, the forged signature, you'd think my hands would be shaking themselves apart. They weren't. Because I was past fear now. Fear is what you feel when you don't know what's happening. I knew exactly what was happening. I had names. I had documents. I had evidence sitting in my hands that connected two men to a conspiracy that had put me in the ground. What I didn't have was a phone, a car with keys, or a single neighbor within 4 miles who wasn't part of this. What I did have was 847 acres of land I knew better than my own face, and a folder full of evidence that was worth considerably more than my life, which meant I needed to get it somewhere safe before I did anything else. I looked out the window, across the dark yard, past the equipment shed, past the old water tower. I could see a faint light moving along the tree line, a flashlight, coming back. I had maybe 4 minutes. 4 minutes. I didn't waste a single second of them. The folder went inside my father's old canvas hunting vest, the one that's hung on the same hook behind the office door for 15 years. I pulled it on over my dirt-caked shirt, buttoned it to the collar, and pressed the folder flat against my chest like armor. Then I moved. No shoes. I'd lost one somewhere between the east field and the root cellar, and the other one had come off inside the box. Bare feet on hardwood, then bare feet on the cold back porch boards, then bare feet on the gravel path behind the equipment shed. Gravel on bare feet in the dark is its own kind of pain. I filed it away with the wrist and the fingernails and the copper taste in my throat. A list of things I would deal with later, when later existed. I cleared the back fence at the property boundary and hit the open pasture running. Not fast, I couldn't do fast, my body had made its limits clear. But steady. The kind of pace you hold when you know the distance is long and stopping isn't an option. A ranch pace. My grandmother called it the pace of necessary things. The highway was 4 kilometers east. I know that stretch of land the way I know my own breathing. The shallow creek crossing at the half-kilometer mark. I felt the cold water go over my ankles and kept moving. The stand of cottonwoods at the 2-kilometer mark where the ground goes soft after rain. I skirted the edge. The old fence line at 3 kilometers, barbed wire, which I went through on my back in the dark with the folder pressed flat, and came out the other side with a new cut across my left shoulder that I didn't fully register until an hour later. I didn't look back. That was a choice, deliberate, because I knew if I looked back and saw that flashlight following me across the open pasture, something in me would break. Not physically, but the fragile, focused thing I'd built inside myself since crawling out of that box. The thing that was keeping me moving in a straight line instead of dissolving into the dark. So I looked forward. The highway appeared as a gray line against the black, then as a surface, then as asphalt under my feet, and asphalt after gravel and creek rock and 3 kilometers of open pasture felt like the most civilized thing I had ever touched. I stood on the center line and looked both directions. Nothing. No headlights. No sound except the wind and something calling from the creek behind me. I don't know how long I stood there. Long enough that the cold started working through the canvas vest. Long enough that my bare feet went from painful to numb. Long enough that I started doing the math on how far the next town was, and whether I could walk it, and what would happen to the folder if I couldn't. Then headlights, westbound. The particular high-set lights of a semi, coming slow on a road that didn't require slow. The careful pace of a driver who'd been behind the wheel too long and knew it. I stepped into the lane. I want to be clear about what I looked like in that moment. Barefoot. No phone. One functional hand. A canvas vest over a shirt that was more dirt than fabric. Hair that had packed itself into something that wasn't quite dreadlocks, but was moving in that direction. a cut on my shoulder bleeding through onto the vest. I looked like a person the reasonable world drives past. The truck slowed. It stopped. The window came down and a man looked out. Mid-50s, reading glasses pushed up on his forehead, a thermos wedged between the seat and the center console. He looked at me for a long moment without speaking. The look of a person assembling a situation. Then he said, "You need help." Not a question. I said, "I need your phone and I need you to drive." He looked at me for another 3 seconds. I watched him make the decision, watched it move across his face the way weather moves across open country. Skepticism, then assessment, then something that was either compassion or simple human recognition of a person at the absolute limit of what they could carry alone. He unlocked the door. His name was Gerald Marsh. He was a long-haul driver out of Amarillo, 17 years on that particular route, and he had a daughter roughly my age who ran a horse operation outside of Lubbock. He handed me his phone without being asked twice. I called the county sheriff, not the local deputy. The county sheriff directly, a woman named Pat Holloway, who I had met exactly once at a livestock association meeting 3 years prior, and whose direct number I had stored in my memory because my father always said, "You keep the numbers that matter somewhere they can't be taken from you." She picked up on the second ring. I said, "This is Claire Hargrove. Someone tried to kill me tonight on my property. I have evidence of who did it and why. I need you to meet me on Highway 83 northbound, and I need you to bring somebody you trust completely, because one of the people involved is Roy Calvert." Silence. 3 seconds of it. Then Pat Holloway said, "Don't move. I'm 20 minutes out." I sat in Gerald Marsh's passenger seat with the folder on my lap and his thermos of bad coffee in my one good hand. And I watched the road behind us in the side mirror. No headlights followed. When the sheriff's vehicle appeared on the horizon, lights going, moving fast, something happened that I hadn't allowed myself until that exact moment. I cried. Not the way people cry in movies. Not graceful or quiet. The ugly, full-body kind that starts somewhere below the stomach and takes everything with it on the way out. Gerald Marsh handed me a paper towel from the glove box and said nothing, which was exactly right. Pat Holloway took the folder. She read the first 3 pages standing in the headlights of her vehicle on the shoulder of Highway 83, and then she looked up at me and said 4 words. "Where is he now?" Dale Pritchard was arrested at 2:14 a.m. at his property, 3 miles from mine. Roy Calvert was picked up at his home at 4:50 a.m. Vantara Resource Group was served with a federal preservation order on their geological survey and all associated documents before the sun came up. I sat in Pat Holloway's office wrapped in a blanket that smelled like a police station. That specific combination of burnt coffee and industrial cleaner and something almost human underneath, and gave my statement for 3.5 hours. My wrist was fractured in 2 places. The cut on my shoulder needed 11 stitches. I had lost approximately 8 pounds of body weight between dinner the previous evening and that moment, most of it in ways I prefer not to calculate. I didn't sleep for another 19 hours, and I didn't care. Because when I finally drove back up the long dirt road to the Hargrove Ranch the following evening, my arm in a cast, Gerald Marsh's paper towel still in the pocket of my father's canvas vest, the land was still mine. Every acre, every blade of grass, every inch of ground above that deposit that 2 men had decided was worth more than my life. I got out of the truck at the top of the rise, where you can see the whole property laid out below. The house, the barn, the equipment shed, the old water tower catching the last of the light, and I stood there for a long time. This was my great-grandmother's ground, my grandfather's ground, my father's ground, mine. And I thought about the voice above that box. Should have sold when you had the chance, Claire. I thought about that for a long time, standing on the rise, with the wind moving through the grass and the horses coming in from the east pasture, the way they do every evening at dusk. Then I went down and fed them. Same as always. People ask me what changed after that night. They expect a big answer. They expect me to say something about perspective or gratitude or the fragility of life. Something that sounds like the ending of a movie, where the music swells and the camera pulls back and everything resolves into something clean and meaningful. That's not how it works. Here's what actually changed. I fixed the latch on the mudroom door, the one I'd been meaning to fix for 3 years. I fixed it the week I got my cast off. Went to the hardware store, bought the parts, spent 40 minutes on my knees in the door frame until it caught the way it was supposed to. It took me 40 minutes because I only had one fully functional hand at the time, and I was too stubborn to ask for help. That's the first thing that changed. The small repairs I'd been postponing. I stopped postponing them. The second thing is harder to explain. I trust differently now. Not less, differently. There's a version of this story where what happened to me turns into a permanent wound, where every person who gets close gets measured against Dale Pritchard and found guilty until proven innocent. I've met people carrying that kind of damage, and I understand it completely. I don't judge it, but that's not what happened to me. What happened is that I got more precise. The way a knife gets precise when it's been sharpened correctly, not harder, just more exact. I know the difference now between the people who show up and the people who perform showing up. Between the ones who hand you a phone without being asked twice, and the ones who ask how you're doing while calculating what you're worth. Gerald Marsh handed me a phone. Pat Holloway drove 20 minutes in the middle of the night on 2 sentences and a name. Those people exist. They are not rare. I just hadn't been paying close enough attention before. The third thing that changed is the evening walk. I still do it. Every night, same route. Past the equipment shed, past the old water tower along the east field perimeter. 22 minutes. I have not missed a single evening in 3 years. Some people think that's strange. A therapist I saw twice suggested it might be worth examining. I stopped seeing that therapist. The walk isn't damage. The walk is the opposite of damage. It's me putting my feet on the ground that is mine and feeling it hold me the way it has always held me and the way it held the 3 generations before me. It's the most honest conversation I know how to have. The land doesn't negotiate, it doesn't calculate, it doesn't smile at your kitchen table while planning your burial. It just holds. Dale Pritchard is serving 22 years. Roy Calvert took a plea and received 14. Vantara Resource Group dissolved their LLC 6 weeks after the federal preservation order, and I have not heard that name since, though I expect I will again someday in a different shape, with a different letterhead. The lithium deposit is still there, under the east pasture. Under the ground I walk every evening. I have had 3 separate offers from 3 separate companies in the 2 years since the trial. I have declined all of them. Not because the money isn't real. It's extraordinarily real. But because there are things that don't have a number, and I am done letting other people assign one. My great-grandmother broke this ground in 1923 with a team of horses and a borrowed plow and the specific stubbornness of a woman who had been told repeatedly that she couldn't. My grandfather poured the foundation of that house by hand. My father walked this same east field perimeter every evening of his adult life, until his legs wouldn't carry him anymore. And on the night of October 14th, someone put me in a box in this ground and covered it over. I got back out. That's the whole story. That's all of it, not because I'm exceptional, not because I'm tougher than the next person, but because this land has been held by people who refuse to let it go. And somewhere, in the muscle and the bone, I am made of that refusal. You asked what changed. That's what changed. I know what I'm made of now, and I would like you to think about that for a moment. Not about me, but about yourself. About the thing in your life that is yours in the way this land is mine. The thing someone would have to bury you to take. Do you know what that is? Tell me in the comments. I mean it. Not a joke, not a one-liner. Tell me what you would crawl out of the ground for. Because the people who know that answer really know it in the bones. Those are the ones who make it back. My name is Claire Hargrove. This is my ranch, and I'm still here. If this story stayed with you, subscribe. There are more voices on this land that deserve to be heard. More stories that happened on ground just like this, to people just like you. I'll be here next time. Same as always.